Hello everybody, CritCrab here with another story, this one about a whiny man baby who ruined the game for everyone involved. However, what initially got me interested in this story was the fact that it was based on the 1986 Ghostbusters RPG, which I also really want to make a video about eventually. Anyways, prepare to cringe, prepare to facepalm, you know the drill and you're damn good at it, keep calm and roll post. All of both names have been changed. Ross was terrible. Just seriously, the worst. I was only roommates with him because I felt sorry for him at the time. I spent the next 6 years feeling sorry for myself. When I had, in effect, adopted him into my social circle, my friends tolerated him for my sake. He was a terrible role player. The list of examples is endless, and quoting some infamous incidents years later is still shorthand amongst my friends for don't be dumb. I had a friend, Eric, that lived in the same building as us, and in between the irregular D&D games the entire group played, I figured the three of us could do something light. Enter Ghostbusters the RPG. I love schmarmy, funny games, when appropriate. I love Ghostbusters. I am more excited for this than I have been for anything in a long time. I walk the two players, Ross and Eric, through the basics of the game and character creation. I only set 2 expectations. I'd like them to play fictionalized Mary Sue versions of themselves buying into the franchise in our home city, and that oftentimes creative, humorous thinking is key. Everything else we could figure out as we go, because this is supposed to be a light, fluffy distraction between our regular game. Eric decides he's an architect, a longtime passion of his. For his backstory, he encountered a ghost or a curse on a dig and later bought into the franchise. Great, simple, and it hangs together easily. Ross is making a big tech character. He fancied himself quite the technocrat. I suggested he could have answered a want ad to manage the equipment and containment systems. What I thought to be a simple but very Ghostbusters-ish backstory. You would have thought I just told him I kicked his cat off the balcony. He was pissed. I had never actually seen someone be sullen before. Until my death, when I mentally define sullen, I will eternally think back to that moment. Ross starts complaining about why he can't make his own backstory. Why'd Eric get to make his own backstory? Geez, okay, Ross wasn't usually one to have much of a plan, but I figured he'd put a bunch of thoughts into his character. My bad. Please, what do you have in mind? Despite this happening over 10 years ago, the words he said that weekend afternoon are seared into my brain. Well, I figure I'm a hacker, and I was on the web hacking, and I found something. My years knowing Ross had taught me to keep my expectations low, but wow. I gently, oh so gently, asked how that led him to becoming a Ghostbuster with Eric. I would have accepted literally anything. I just wanted to go, but having something simple to play off of would be nice. Or he found that someone had applied for a ghostbusting license in the city and sought them out. Maybe him and Eric were friends in-game already. Maybe anything. I don't know, was all I got. So I gently, oh so freaking gently, offered a series of suggestions, much as the ones above, to which Ross replied, "Fine, whatever, I answered an ad then." Cool, great start. They get a call. The police are reaching out to them because there's what they suspect to be a haunted taxi running rampant through a chic outdoor market area. Let's roll. Sure enough, there's a rampaging taxi cab barricaded into an outdoor market by the police. They try to proton pack it. Eric hits, having made a well-rounded character. Ross misses, having only put the minimum points into his proton pack. The cab driver and the cops start screaming at them for damaging private and public property. Eric figures pretty quickly that shooting the taxi probably isn't what they should do. He starts talking to the cops, and then the taxi driver, and then the passenger in turn. During and between the conversations, I keep asking Ross what he's doing. Each and every time I get the same response. He sits there in deep thought, gets this pissy look on his face, says he can't think of anything else to do, shoots his proton pack at the cab, misses, gets yelled at by the cops. Despite Eric, in character, pleading with him to try something else, he keeps doing it. Despite the police pleading with him, same thing. Despite the cab driver pleading, same thing. Despite Eric and me out of character pleading, same goddamn thing. During all this, Eric figures out that the passenger was smuggling a statue that apparently houses a demon. And because it was already extremely clear to him to not just shoot at the goddamn thing, he attempts to jump into the rampaging taxi. He doesn't get it on the first few chances, but he eventually jumps through the window and into the front seat. And all the while, Ross is repeating the same process, getting more and more angry and having less and less fun as time goes on. Eric eventually turns off the taxi's meter, exorcising the demon from the car. A chuckle-worthy situation for what should have been a quick, chuckle-worthy session. I hand them the bill. They would have been paid $5,000 for taking care of the taxi, but with all the property damage, they're in the red and will be taken to court if they don't pay. This is an actual mechanic of the RPG. Eric had a blast. Ross was almost in tears, he was so angry. His feedback was less than constructive, amounting to whining. He has no intention of playing again. This wasn't the worst of that player. Honestly, there's too many examples for a single post. When I tell stories of Ross, both from D&D and IRL, I honestly think people don't believe me because no one could be as frustratingly stupid as he. But no, I couldn't make up Ross if I tried. This wasn't his worst, it was just a good example of who he was and how he ruined something I was excited about. TLDR? I don't know, player gets pissy because he can't think of anything to do other than shoot his gun, which doesn't work. Wait, actually the TLDR is don't be excited to do something, then invite Ross to be involved. And post. Okay, so before I start dissecting this, I found some additional context in the comments that I would like to get into. Roll comment? Somebody in the comments asked, was Ross familiar with the Ghostbusters franchise prior to the game? Was everyone, Ross included, clear about what the game was about in the first place and that the conflict may not be resolved with violence alone? And 3, could Ross have been autistic or on the spectrum, or even have some sort of intellectual disability? I was just curious how he could have remained so rigid in derailing the game when you guys were pleading with him out of character to stop. It sounds like he just spawned into another instance of GTA or Skyrim and he's just spamming the attack button. Was he deliberately doing it in spite, or was he really that oblivious? OP responds. 1, very. 2, very. 3, God, I wish. If he was, it would have made things so much simpler. No. He was just an oblivious tool that had zero self-awareness. You couldn't suggest anything to him. His ego isn't really the right word, but his something wouldn't allow it. An inflated sense of self, no interpersonal skills outside of Star Wars trivia and Japan fetishization was his wheelhouse. End comment. So with that in mind, I have no problem dealing with this cringe Megazord like the whiny little weasel he is. First problem is that obviously this guy is an infant. If you can't handle things not going your way, rolling dice? Probably a bad idea, as success is not always guaranteed. Second is the fact that OP mentioned living with this dude out of pity for 6 years. I don't like to start victim blaming in these videos because there can be unseen complications and legitimate reasons for OPs to not go scorched earth on their that guys. But 6 years? 6 years? I don't know, OP. I don't know why they had to linger for all of 6 years. There had to be some serious legitimate reasons for not up and leaving, but you, my friend, have the patience of a saint. Go, you glorious creature. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more stories just like this one. Till next time.